Today on the show, we're discussing India's infrastructure story that was sadly exposed by the recent heavy rainfall. First, on Thursday in Jabalpur, a section of the roof canopy at the Dumna airport collapsed after heavy rain. It damaged a government official's car, but fortunately, no one was hurt. Then at Terminal 1 at Delhi Airport yesterday, the roof in the arrival section collapsed and it killed one person, injuring several others. And today, the canopy roof outside the Rajkot Airport in Gujarat was also damaged due to heavy rainfall. So that's 3 incidents involving airports in 3 days. Now, establishing more and more airports has been a big part of the infra push of the Modi government in the last couple of years, with the construction of 84 airports over just the last decade. And it's not just airport infrastructure that's under scrutiny. Another shocking infrastructure failure has been a bridge collapse in Bihar, and a bridge collapsed yesterday, making it a 5th bridge collapse in just 9 days. An under construction bridge collapsed in Bihar's Madhubani region. So that's crores and crores of taxpayers' money just down the drain. So as we march towards becoming a $5 trillion economy and Viksit Bharat, this is a reality check on how we must do more to maintain the infrastructure we already have. We also have to take into account climate change and extreme weather events, which we will be seeing more and more frequently. So today on the show, we're discussing structural failures amidst infra push, India exposed. First, let's take a look at this report. As we said, 3 days, 3 incidents of structural failures at airports. NDTV's Ghazali with all the details.
First Jabalpur, then Delhi, and now Rajkot. In the recent spate of canopy collapses at airports, has raised concerns over the structural integrity and maintenance of airports' facilities, particularly during adverse weather conditions.
There was water accumulation due to heavy rain, and one part of the canopy that collapsed, but no injury to any person, anybody.
Meanwhile, due to lack of information, passengers were still seen reaching Terminal 1 in Delhi and then having to go to one of the others 2 terminals which are operational.
सर जी गाड़ियों का काम इससे ही चलता था हमारा। मेट्रो से इधर से सवारी होते थे। अब वो काम भी हमारा खराब ही हो गया एयरपोर्ट बंद होने के कारण।
बहुत लॉस है सर जी, वैसे तो इतना लॉस है क्या बताऊं सर। काम धंधा यहीं से, हाँ टैक्सियों का काम धंधा यहीं से चलता है।
हमको कुछ व्हाट्सएप में कुछ ऐसा इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं आया।
अच्छा।
और हम कल ट्रैवल कर रहे थे, कल रात से हम ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं। हाँ। तो हम मेल वेल चेक करने का टाइम नहीं मिला हमको।
तो कोई फोन वोन नहीं आया?
कुछ नहीं आया।
ओके।
हमको जहाँ से हमने बोर्डिंग पास लिया वो हमको T1 बताया गया। हाँ। इधर आने के बाद अभी कहानी दूसरा है।
The government has now swung into action and has brought in a special team from IIT Delhi.
We don't want this incident to happen again. So we have brought in a special team from IIT Delhi, from the structural engineering department. They are going through the inspection and they will provide the ministry with an initial inspection report. Based on that report, we are going to take necessary measures or necessary actions will be taken. We are getting a structural inspection done, preliminary inspection done at all the airports. And I have been very clear to my ministry that this report has to come from each and every airport in the country and it has to be on my table within 2 to 5 days.
These incidents have exposed the quality of public infrastructure in the major cities and call for accountability of those responsible for the criminal negligence which ended an innocent life in Delhi. Experts also ask if our infrastructure is resilient enough to withstand the increasing number of extreme weather events in the face of climate change. With Mohammad Ghazali, Bureau Report, NDTV.
All right, well, joining us on the panel tonight, B. Anil Gupta, spokesperson BJP, Dr. Anika Moitra, spokesperson Congress, Professor KT Ravindran, urban designer and architect, former chairman of Delhi Urban Art Commission, Raghu Murtugude, professor of climate studies at IIT Bombay, and Medha Priya, designer and architect, climate warrior, also one of the UN's We the Change campaign members. Thank you so much all for joining us. And Anil Gupta, first to you. 3 incidents involving critical infrastructure at airports in 3 days. We obviously need to ensure structural audits are done. Now it's been ordered by the aviation minister. But do you think India needs to pause the building spree that we have been on and do a reality check with our existing infrastructure?
Yeah, good evening, Gargi, and good evening to all the viewers. See, any mishappening should be avoided. There are 2 types of tragedy and the mishappening. One is the man-made mishappening calamities, and another is the natural. See, we cannot do of the natural, but we must prepare for the natural calamities. We must prepare for all this. But for man-made, it should be strictly avoided. And the person who is responsible, the action should be taken. For all the 3 airports, as the minister has already ordered for the structure audits, the finding should be there. And the person who is responsible should be punished for that. But I must point out one more incident of the incessant raid in the Delhi. You know what happens in Delhi? It is a man-made thing. You know, all the pumping structure, all the sewerage structure failed in Delhi. Like in the Pragati Medantal, you know, PWD was pumping the water into the tunnel. That is a man-made thing. It should be avoided. So the person who is responsible, government should also have to take responsibility. But I still feel these all 3 happenings should be avoided, should have been avoided. And whatever happened is a sorry state, and as the minister has ordered for inquiry, the findings of the inquiry should be strictly implemented. And
no, definitely it's a sorry state of affairs. Dr. Anika Moitra, your comments here, you know, a single spell of rain exposing the condition of basic infrastructure in the cities and in the national capital, if we talk about especially, and it's a city that both the Congress, BJP, Aam Aadmi Party now, but all, you know, different parties have been in charge of Delhi. So this crumbling infrastructure is a collective problem.
Absolutely, Gargi. And it's rightly said, a stitch in time saves 9. You see, we are not sitting here to listen to the sermons of the BJP here. The BJP government actually should stop the war of optics. It's high time that they need to work before things happen. Like, you have to be prepared. The preparedness is missing. Like in schools and colleges, you don't get a certificate. You need to have a disaster management team. You need to have drills. There's constant regularity happening in case of earthquake and stuff like that. But what happens to these public places where a huge number of people are coming? Look at the amount of entry fees that are being charged by the airports. Is this what you give to the public? So, I mean, it's little too late in the day, Gargi, to say, you know, this has to be done and this should be done. And we all know global warming. We all know excessive rain. We know things are happening. Despite that, if this is what we're going to happen back to back, I think the government of the day needs to put its act together. It's too late in the day to say, yeah, we are doing this check, we are getting IIT. Why were you not doing it earlier? Didn't you know there's monsoon approaching? These are facts which everybody knows. Still then, a school, for example, or a college, you see, like, for example, like we are running, the fire certificates, the fitness certificates, the building structure certificates, these things are the first and foremost, which has to be checked annually.
All right, let me get in Professor KT Ravindran now. And sir, your comments on, you know, the situation we found ourselves in to have these 3 airport incidents in the last 3 days. Also what's taken place in Bihar, where 5 bridges have collapsed in just 9 days. So where are we going wrong in our infrastructure push? And, you know, the Modi government has been on a building spree.
Obviously, I think there are lacks in the way we are doing technical checking of our projects. It's quite possible that most of these projects, which were kind of finished in a hurry, probably didn't have enough time to do load tests and so on post-construction. After it is approved by the technical committee, which actually oversees the project, only then it should have been commissioned. I'm not sure if all these projects have had enough time to do so. I'm saying this from the experience of having been part of the inspection team for a few years ago when the roof of the T3 airport in Delhi flew off. I was part of the inquiry team, and we found that these were actually, you know, industrial products which are brought together to create a composite structure. And if any of those structures, any of those components are weak, or the way they are assembled is weak, then the integrity of the structure is compromised. So that kind of thing can happen when this kind of industrial structures are done. And they require complete tests before they are commissioned. And I'm not sure in this case if
so they were
had
prefabricated structures that were brought together, and this is just, it's to, complete the project on time.
Absolutely. No, not only to complete the project on time. This is the trend across the globe in airport construction.
I see.
I remember in the last case, we found that the weak link was actually a clip which was holding the roof sheets in place. That clip was locally manufactured, whereas all the other products were manufactured under an Australian license. So there was one weak link which gave rise to the collapse of that roof, the leak of the entire airport at that time. And the inquiry cannot be done in 4 or 5 days. Like it was just said that IIT will be asked to submit their report in 4 days. Please give them sufficient time to do a thorough job.
All right, Professor Ragu, if you could also come in here. And, the first day of monsoon hitting Delhi is when this, we saw this mishap happen at the Delhi airport. But it was also the highest rainfall in a single day in June in Delhi in, the last 88 years. But the worry is we're going to see more and more of these sort of extreme weather events taking place. And is our infrastructure up to the mark?
Yeah, so we have to remember that we are coming out of the warmest years, 2023-24. We're coming into a La Nina. We were expecting heavy rains. And in fact, Delhi, just the day before, I had commented to Down to Earth saying that Delhi and Himachal and so on should expect heavy rains. The other kind of infrastructure that India has done very well on is since 2009, we have spent well over 1,000 crores on computers, buildings, people to improve our weather and climate forecasts. And in fact, this heavy event was forecasted, but unfortunately, they are not at a scale of a terminal or so. But what happens is once you got this kind of forecast, and you know that rivers are going to rise and so on, a lot of no regret decisions have to happen, and that includes structural checks quickly, bridges, flooding regions, hotspots, and so on. That's not happening. The last mile of transferring the early warnings on heavy rains to checking infrastructure, roads, terminals, whatever else, and that's not happening. So the other thing we have to remember is we have to build back better. So resilience is missing as well. When things collapse, it's not just about making reports and seeing why they failed, but to make plans so that whatever we rebuild has to be much more resilient. And, we will get more heavy rains, and we have to be ready for that.
All right, Medha, Priya, I'd like to get you here as the youngest on the panel. How does it make a young person like you feel? We've seen what took place at the Delhi airport, and then this blame game breaking out with the opposition attacking the government saying, oh, this was actually built back in 2009. And also, the crises that we find ourselves in. Just 10 days ago, I was on my 9 o'clock news, I was discussing the water shortage in Delhi, and there were water wars, and we're accusing Haryana of not, providing water. And now we are in the midst of this, crisis with Delhi flooding, and talk of how the drainage has not been prepared enough for the monsoon. So, as a young person, your view on this?
I think I speak on behalf of the youth is that I don't think we care so much about who did what, but rather what happened. I think if the aviation minister is thinking of doing a report, what is more important is for us to know what exactly happened, and the information should be brought out to the public. And I also feel that so many youth is actually interested to be working in the climate space and to adding to the capacity of building for resilience. So there should also be a focus on how to help government to build resilience. I think that sort of collaboration between the youth and the government and all other stakeholders involved in the process of creating infrastructure, I think that should be the focus of how we move forward from this incident.
And, given we have elections, we just got through our national elections, state elections are coming up. But these sort of issues are never the big talking points during elections. There are usually various other issues that come up. And your comments on that?
I think, as sad as it is, such big incidents do stay back on people's minds, and it's like the elections have passed, but I'm sure an incident as big as this and as impactful as this will remain in people's minds, and people will question it in the coming elections and will hold others accountable. Especially the youth, I think, is very impressionable, and they actually care a lot about the climate. So I think incidents such as this one would really help in building the narrative further on how we as a country move forward and build for resilience, and also develop capacity building for the youth.
All right. Well, Anil Gupta, coming back to you, if we talk about the taxpayers, and that there's been a lot of talk of this, that, it's our money is going into all this infrastructure. If we talk about, the bridges that collapsed in Bihar, 5 bridges washed away in just 9 days. I mean, what kind of a joke is that? If you have the Madhubani bridge collapsing, it was built for 3 crores. It hadn't even started functioning. It collapsed. Then in East Champaran district on June 23rd, then a bridge over the Gandak Canal in Siwan on 22nd, on June 19th, a portion of under construction bridge in Araria, and then finally June 18th, a bridge over the Bakra River in Araria. I mean, 5 bridges collapsing in 9 days. How do you explain this?
Gargi, I think there are 2 types of incidents. One is you can say is the government failure. Another you can say is the engineering or the technical failure. I give you 2 examples. Like in Delhi, the rains. Delhi has roughly 3,750 kilometers of the stormwater drains. These are maintained by 11 agencies. There is no coordination between these agencies, so there was this traffic jam and the flooding. So it can be said as a government failure. But when you talk of the airports and all that, somewhere I think it is a engineering failure, the technical failure. The engineers who were responsible for all these things, government has sanctioned the money. Government, the politician doesn't supervise. They sanctioned the project, the government sanctioned the project, they try to implement the project. It is the technical persons who supervise these projects. So whenever these types of things happen, the person who's technically supervised should be held responsible. And I'm saying in front of you that it is a technical failure.
You're saying this is a technical issue, but now what? I mean, who are the construction companies involved in this? How does one answer the public over this, over the waste of public money, taxpayers' money?
No doubt, the public money has been wasted, all this. But there is a provision, I think, I am not a technical in that, but there is from the contractors, from the blacklisted, there is a provision of taking back the money from them. I cannot say fully because I'm not in the government. But there is always a provision of the blacklisting and all these things. But I can say it is a failure and the public money is wasted. It should have been avoided. It can happen anywhere, but it should be avoided. The technical expertise, the structural audit, all the things.
Anika Moitra, you want to come in here?
Yeah. Gargi, the electoral bonds are proof enough that they're giving orders to a blacklisted company. Look what happened in Gujarat, the bridge. The person is scot-free after so many people died on the bridge, Marabal Bridge. So, just by lip service will not help. The point here is that if you remember Shilajit's government, Gargi, 10 years back, say no to plastic, plant more trees, Bhagidari schemes, they were all public involvement as your young panel was speaking. So we need to have collaboration with the public also. Rope in and get these schemes following up, but nothing happens here. Soon after Congress government left Delhi and the AAP came or BJP in MCD, nothing has taken place. The electoral bonds have proved, Gargi, that they have given orders to companies who are not even competent to run such kind of constructions. So how can you just say, oh, pass the buck on the company? Isn't not the government liable to see that such kind of leakages are not permitted? But no, there's no answer to it. You ask question on NEET, the leakage on papers, there's no answer to it. You can't pass the buck, Gargi. The government of the day is accountable and has to be accountable. You can't have life of the people at the mercy of a government who is reckless and careless about, giving projects.
Respond from Anil Gupta to that, then I want to go back to Professor Ravindran. Go ahead.
Gargi, this electoral bond issue, all the political parties, including the Congress, have taken this electoral bonds. Even the Congress has taken hundreds of crores. So you cannot say these failures
have
are
we given orders?
Have we
given orders? Have we done ED raids on them and then given orders?
Please be patient. I am not
interested. I think we're getting diverted. What we want to talk about is the infrastructure. I don't want this, political blame game, and now we're bringing in electoral bonds. One moment, let me just go to Professor Ravindran.
All
right.
Don't interfere.
I will.
Just let him give a quick reply. I really want to move on.
Have the manner of participating in the
Okay,
debate.
Anil
You should
Gupta,
have the
quickly
manner
just
of
reply to
not
that.
giving wrong information.
Why have you taken
Don't
the
give-
electoral bond? The comment
Have you
should have
sent
different.
ED?
You have
Have you
taken
sent
hundreds of
ED
crores
and
in
All right, we're
electoral
going
bond.
to,
You
leave
should have
that
different
part of the
things. Why you are
discussion. But
letting
Professor
these-
Ravindran, coming back to you, what's very worrying, please, if we can just pause it. What's very worrying is the rapid urbanization we're seeing, and one statistic is that by 2036 we're going to see 600 million people in our cities, in our towns and cities. That's the 40% of the population, could be moving in the cities. And how are we preparing for this? How is our infrastructure going to prepare for this? Because urban planning, the way we've seen how it got exposed in just the first, and in fact today you have, floods in Jodhpur, you have flooding happening in Haridwar, various cities are flooded because of the heavy rainfall. So one really wonders, how are we preparing for this, huge influx of population we're going to see?
Well, Gargi, we seems to be concerned and express our concern only when there's a crisis. What is the preparation that we are doing? We are not doing any preparation at all. We are like ordering cutting of thousands of trees when the whole world is crying about climate crisis. India is cutting thousands of trees. Just behind the airport, an entire forest was slated to be cut. I don't know what is the status of it now. We are doing things which we should not be doing at all as far as the climate crisis is concerned. And what we are seeing today in city after city, the flooding that we see in cities after cities are largely due to our own developmental projects and our own planning or the absence of planning. We have turned the land only into a commodity that can be calculated, that can be valued on its land value. We have not recognized the fact that the land, which includes the water systems and the flora and fauna on it, is a primary resource for planning our cities. Instead, we are looking at them as marketable commodities.
Right.
I mean,
Professor Ravindran, I remember many years ago interviewing you when the Commonwealth Games village was coming up on the Yamuna floodplain, and you warned that one day we're going to see floods, and we saw what happened last year, with the Yamuna expanding and, flooding large parts of Delhi. But on this issue of water now, Professor Ragu, if I could come to you, if we, just as I mentioned earlier, 10 days ago, we were talking about the water crisis and how there was not enough water for Delhi, and this water wars between states was taking place. But there are examples in India. If we look at, there's Surat, for instance, has become one of the first Indian cities to recycle wastewater at scale. Then you have an example of Dharampuri in Madhya Pradesh, which is also has an integrated approach to water, recycling wastewater, and they've also managed to become water positive. So we need more of these examples to be copied for other cities, other towns as well, and more focus on these issues.
Yeah, so let me address quickly the issues that Medha raised. The biggest part of resilience adaptation will be training the future generations to deal with these issues. So she's sitting here and thinking how quickly things go out of control when people digress from the main issue and start talking about irrelevant issues. And even in this kind of a situation where we are facing serious issues. So Surat is a good example. They learned a lot of lessons from the plague epidemic long time ago. And we did a study on typhoid in Ahmedabad and Surat. And Surat did much better, even though it's a poorer city, more slums and so on, because they allocated good funds to sanitation, clean water, hygiene and so on. And Ahmedabad didn't do that. So it's the same for water. So water is a crisis. When you have a big city like Delhi, lots of leakage, lots of waste, lot of theft, all sorts of things happen. So how do you bring about, control of water? You want to make running water walk, and you want to make walking water stop, and store it, recharge groundwaters, and manage the supplies properly, and manage the treatment. And then there is the issue of recycling water and reusing, convert to grey water and use it for appropriate.
Right. I mean, the good examples out there. Yes, the good examples out there need to be, emulated by other towns as well. But Professor Ravindran, coming back to infrastructure, this political blame game is going on when this terminal was built in Delhi, the Terminal 1. But who is supposed to then look after the infrastructure assets once they're completed? Obviously, we need constant audits to be done, safety audits also to be done. Your comments on, the infrastructure issue that we're facing right now, the manner in which it's got exposed with this just, one rainfall and it exposes everything.
That's very true. What you just pointed out is a very important fact that we cannot ignore. We have an entire ministry devoted to civil aviation. We have a controlling organization which is set up under the ministry to directly regulate the functioning of these airports. We have the governance infrastructure in place. But why is it that then we are failing to govern? Why is it that we are ready to take credit for, say, we built so many airports, we built so many roads, we built so many bridges, we take credit for that. But when it comes to a collapse, the blame goes to the contractor because he is the weakest link in it. It's not a question of getting money back from the contractor. It's looking at where the failure actually took place. If there is structural failure, there is oversight failure. If there is oversight failure, there is governance failure. So it's a hierarchically ordered system which functions on paper as well as in reality. It should be functioning on reality, but it only functions on paper. So this is the basic problem of infrastructure in our country, whether it's the construction of a bridge, it's about building the highways, how Himalayan cities are collapsing. We have highways being driven through the middle of the road, middle of the cities and settlements, where two sides are separated from each other. One neighborhood is cut into two pieces. They can't even go across the flyover. There are situations which are being created mindlessly in our cities. The citizen seems to be of least value.
Right. Well, I'm running out of time. Sorry to interrupt you. One last word from Medha, Priya. Final comment from you.
Yeah, I think my final comment would be along those lines that Ravindran sir has also said that we can't isolate one party and put the blame on them, because when something goes wrong, it's a lot of things coming together and failing, and we are only seeing the end result of it. So I think right from the beginning of when such projects are, the inception occurs, it is very important to involve people who are subject matter experts on the topic of resilience and climate change. And they should be consulted at every step of the way. And like
no,
sir
absolutely.
also said,
I think we need more and more, experts on these issues to be involved. And, the politics, of course, will continue. I'm out of time. Thank you all so much for joining us on the program. What's worrying is this is just the start of the monsoon, and already so much, has been exposed. Thanks again for joining us.